maybe. Okay, so my artifact is going to be in black. I'm going to just grab one of these standard shapes. I'm going to do this donut. And then I'm going to change this to being ghosted so I can kind of see through it. Okay, so if that's my donut, then I need a display case for my donut. So for my donut, I'm just going to make like a really basic boxy display case. Yep, so how do I do that? I'm going to draw my box here, right? And then how do I give it thickness? Yeah. Yep, extrude curve. And I'm going to bring it down here. Yep. And then I'm going to do a Boolean difference that the donut has like a place to sit in my box. So I'm going to move this up a little bit because I don't want it to sit down too far. And then I'm going to do Boolean difference. Hang on, Boolean difference. And I'm going to say, okay, to subtract from is the box, hit enter. And then to subtract with is going to be the donut, hit enter. Okay, and then for this drawing, I'm actually going to bring my donut up a little bit so that like you can see that indent, maybe even up a little bit more. Do you see like the little indent it made for my donut? So now this is like my display case. Okay, so I'm going to find a view of it that I like. I'm trying to rotate a little bit so that I can see both this indent I made for it and my object. And I'm getting kind of that angle view. Once I'm happy with that, I want to save this view so that I can go back to it easily. So I'm going to go over here, click on my down arrow, go to Set View, Named Views, and then I'm going to click on this little camera, and I'm going to call this Perspective 1. And then hit OK. So what that does for me is like if I mess up and I move this around, I can always double click on here and it'll bring me back to Perspective 1. It's like, yeah, it's like saving a 3D view. Okay, so now that I have this, I want to render my image. So there are lots of different things you can do for rendering. I'm just going to leave the default settings. So I'm going to click on render up here and click on render again. And it's going to pop up with this box. What rendering does is it like throws light onto your object and it tries to like see what it would look like if light were hitting it from a specific angle. So down here it says my render is ready. So it's all white and it's just giving me a little bit of shading to add into my drawing. So I'm going to hit save. And then when I save, I want to make sure it's a JPEG and I'm going to save it to my downloads. And just make sure you call it something that you can remember. So I'm calling this donut render. Okay, and I'm saving that. Okay, great. I'm going to close this out. And then over here, I need to make my 2D drawing. So I'm going to click and drag to select this. And then I'm going to type in a command called make 2D. And I want to select over here my projection is first angle projection. That's going to give me a plan view here, a front view here, a side view here, and a 3D view here. And I want to maintain my source layers, and I want to have hidden lines. And then I'm going to hit OK. So then the computer is going to take a minute to think because it's trying to figure out like how to make this 2D. It did it pretty fast. So here is my drawing. I can move it over. So if I zoom in here, I can kind of see how that works. So it's giving me a dotted line like to explain the like thickness of the donut. It's showing me that little indent here again with the dotted line. Sometimes it messes up. Like this line should be the same color as that. So I can go over to my layers and I can right click over here and hit change object layer. I can also do that later just to make sure everything's on the right layer. So once I have this, I'm going to select all of this and go to File. Select that. File, Export Selected. And then I'm going to save this as donut lines. And I'm going to make sure it's also in my downloads. Okay, so I'm saving it as a DWG file. Hit save, and I'm going to leave the default settings and hit OK. So now that I have that, I'm going to go over to Illustrator. I'm going to make a new file, File New. and I want it to be 24 inches by 24 inches. So I can change that, and I can change my units here to inches if it's not inches already. Hit OK. And now I'm going to open up that drawing. So I'm going to go to File, Open. I'm going to click on the DWG and hit Open again. Hit OK. And I want to scale it so that 1 unit is 1 inch. We might change that, but for now we'll leave it as that. Hit OK. And it's going to bring in my drawing. So I'm going to have to make my drawing a little bit smaller because this is too big. So I'm going to copy paste it in. So Control C. Then I'm going to go to my new drawing. And over here, I want to make sure I have Paste Remembers Layers on so that it keeps my layers. And I'm just going to do Control V and paste it in. If it is too big like this is, I can transform it. So I'm going to scale mine. So I'm going to go to Object, Transform, or sorry, Edit Transform. Edit Transform? Oh, Object Transform, Scale. And I'm going to make this 50% and see how that looks. And then hit OK. And I think that's a little bit small, so maybe we'll do 75%. So Object, Transform, Scale, 75%. And then hit OK. You always want to know when you can what scale your drawing is at, so that like if you need to measure it or somebody asks you, you can be like, oh, this is at 1 inch equals 1 foot scale, or this is at 1 inch equals 1 foot scale, or this is at 75% of the real size, whatever it is. Okay. So now that this is in, I'm going to click to the side, and then here I need to change all my line weights so I can see it. So things that are hidden, I'm going to select. So I'm going to click on the bubble next to it to select it, and then this one also says hidden, so I'm going to hold Shift and select that one. And all those lines I want to be dotted. So I'm going to go over here, change my line weight to 0.5, and then under my stroke over here, I'm going to change it to a dashed line and make it 5 point there. I also want to change the color. So the color, I'm going to double click on this line down here, and I'm going to go to swatches, and I'm going to make it black and then hit OK. And so now you'll see, if you zoom in, you can see the dotted line there. Okay, I now am going to color in the donut. What color should we make the donut? Pink. Being green, brown. I heard pink first. I'm just going to go with pink because I heard pink first. So I'm going to select on, I'm looking for Visible Curves artifact, right? So those are my donut lines. I'm going to come over here and change the stroke weight to 1. And then I'm going to double click on here to change my color. And I can just pick a color from here. So if I want to make like a pink glazy donut, hit OK, and then click outside. And so now that's pink. Okay, and then my display case visible lines, I'm going to select over here. What color should my display case be? Green. All right. So I'm going to make it in green. You can also, I often just make all my lines black just to keep it simple. But color's also fun. And then here I'm going to change the stroke weight to 1. Okay, so now I have my lines in my drawing. And you'll notice like a couple of them didn't come through. Like this one is missing. So sometimes you have to do a little bit of editing. So I can Control C, Control V to bring this over. And I can right click on here and transform and reflect it vertically to make like that side that's missing. I can also go back into Rhino and fix it if I need to. Okay, so last thing, I want to bring in my drawing. So I'm going to go to my renderings. I'm going to do File, Place, and then bring in my donut render and hit Place. I want to drag it down so that it's on the last layer. And then I'm going to put it right underneath the 3D view, and I'm going to drag the sides of this in order to get it to fit. So I want to make sure it's like just fitting here. And so this is just like a little bit of patience, a little bit smaller. Okay. And so there's my drawing. I might decide that like this again didn't come out quite right, so I might need to manually change some of these lines, and I can select them by clicking on them, clicking on the other one, holding Shift, and then I can move them over to the correct layer by holding down on this little box and then moving them over to where they should be, which is under visible. And then I can use my little eyedropper to click on another line that looks like I want them to look to fix them. I might, same thing with this. So again, I click it, it's on the wrong layer. I'm going to drag it onto the right layer. And then I'm going to use my eyedropper tool to select another line that I want it to look like so that it fixes it. So now that one's all fixed up. I might decide that I want some lines to come forward. So maybe I want this face to be darker to kind of distinguish it. So for that, I would just select those lines holding shift that I want to be thicker or darker. And then I could come over here to the stroke and I could bump those up to 2 point. The last thing I might want to do, you can see that this is overlapping my other drawing. If I want to cut that down, I can draw a rectangle over this of what I want to keep. And then I can click on that and also hold shift and click on my rendering, right click and hit make clipping mask. And that'll just clean that up so that the rendering doesn't go into the other drawings. Okay, so once I am done with this and happy with this, I'm going to go to File, Save first. And I'm going to call this Display Case Drawing. And then also I'm going to save a copy, and this time I want you to save it as a PDF. And then you're going to be uploading both of those files to Google Classroom. So it's under the assignment. I have so many assignments open. So Architecture 2, classwork. So you should put your Rhino model in this one if you're not done, or if you are done, you haven't uploaded it yet. Display case Rhino model, and then the display case digital drawing goes in here. When do you expect this to finish? We have tomorrow to do this. Today and tomorrow.